Here we go. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to part 2 of my Ask Me Anything, my AMA, the Robuilt AMA, where we talk about all of your burning questions in regards to starting an Airbnb business, how much money is too much money to invest in your Airbnb business, how much do I charge for foot photos on OnlyFans, and everything in between. I'm your host, Rob, feeling extra energetic because it's 2:37. I love whenever we record a video in the afternoon because I hit my win and I'm like, let's do this, man. Let's get into today's video. But before we do, a quick thank you to today's sponsor, Cuts. It's Cuts, but for some reason, every time I say Cuts, I always have to go, Cuts.
Do you have it?
Cuts Clothing. Thank you, Cuts. Well, a little bit more on them later. If you could only have 5 houses in your portfolio, where would they be located? Okay, this is an interesting question because there's 2 ways I can answer this. I can answer this based on 5 houses that I would want in my portfolio that I could actually go and visit, and 5 houses in my portfolio that would just make me the most money. I'm gonna do a little bit of both. I would say, I don't know if I'm gonna name 5 here, but I guess markets that I would be investing in right now if I just had like gobs of money. I would love to be investing in Scottsdale. I would love a very cool getaway retreat in the Austin area, like Dripping Springs, for example. I would love a mega, just super awesome house that's like the most luxury version, mid-century modern version of a cabin out in the Smoky Mountains. Destin, obviously, if you guys watch the channel, you know that I just tried to buy a house in Destin, and in the final hours, it fell out of escrow because it didn't appraise. So I would love an awesome beach house. There's so many places I could do this, Gulf Shores, Galveston. But to me, I think that Destin is probably like the premier vacation rental beach town, in my opinion. And last one, let's end with the banger here. I guess Pioneer Town. Pioneer Town is right outside of Joshua Tree. If I could have just an amazing portfolio piece out in that town, the views are great, the topography is great, but it's super competitive. And that is one area where I'm like, you might have missed the boat. If you didn't invest there in the last 5 years, it's really expensive. Land is tough to get. Utilities out there are tough to get. There are a lot of things that are preventing me from ever getting a house or building a house out there, but that is one of my dream pieces. How much of my profit should I set aside? This is a really interesting question because a lot of people get into Airbnb and they want to take that cash flow and use it to help them quit their jobs.
And you can take this job and shove it.
Here is the harsh reality. If you want to quit your 9-to-5 job and become a full-time Airbnb host, then you should set aside 100% of your profit. And you should use 100% of your profit to reinvest and reinvest and reinvest. And try to get to 3 to 5 properties as quickly as possible. Only then can you consider taking a profit because you don't want to take away from scaling away your business. Now, there are a couple things that I want to talk through here. If you want to quit your job, the idea isn't just to replace your income. Before you quit your job, ideally you're making more in real estate than you are at your job for a few reasons. You're no longer going to be a W-2, you're not going to get your health insurance paid for, you're not going to have 401k compensation, anything like that. So you have to overcompensate with your self-employment income because A, you're going to be hit with taxes a lot harder because your employers pay part of your taxes when you're W-2. You're going to have to pay for your own insurance. You're going to have to a lot more towards your retirement and savings and all that kind of stuff. And on top of that, you don't want to just match what you're making. You want to ideally make a little bit more so that you always have a little extra money that you can keep investing into your short-term portfolio. For me, I would say that I'm 4 or 5 years into this. I really still don't pay myself from Airbnb because I just use that as a machine that keeps churning and I keep reinvesting and making my portfolio bigger. I've got 14 units or so right now. I don't depend on that cash flow. I make money on all my other income streams, so I'm happy to just keep throwing it into my real estate development so that one day when I'm 65 and they're all paid off, I've got a $20-30 million portfolio that I can either sell off or live off of. How can I learn from you, Rob? Oh, come on. That's a softball. That's a softball, Mom. Thank you so much for contributing to the channel. If you want to sign up for my Airbnb mentorship program, it's 12 months long. It's very thorough. It's 8 hours of content, 80 plus videos, and then we go live once a month. And I teach you how to start your Airbnb business from the ground up. If you want to learn more about that, again, link in the description, or you can go to hostcamp.com. How much is too much debt to build your Airbnb? That is a question that you have to answer yourself. I think the advice that I always hear out there is that whatever property you have, you should have 6 months in reserves for that property. So if you have one property that costs you $2,000 a month to run, then you should have $12,000 in reserves in case anything ever happens with that property. So that means if you have 6 properties, that's $12,000. You would need 12 times 6, which is $72,000 in reserve or somehow accessible through all your other other assets that you can cover all the expenses in case, there's a global pandemic that shuts you down for 1, 2, or 3 months and you have to refund $40,000 to $50,000. No, I'm really not bitter about that time because we made it through because we had reserves. So just make sure that you can cover the worst case scenario that you can think of for your entire real estate portfolio. There is no magical number here, but don't bite off more than you can chew. Do you get your eyebrows done? Oh man, that's funny. No. Did my wife write this? I have heard from certain ladies in my life that I have really nice eyebrows and they're always jealous of my eyebrows. I think they look like normal eyebrows, but no, this is it. This is how I woke up. This hair, these eyebrows, this very thick and beautiful beard. This is how I woke up this morning.
It's Brittany, bitch.
Any plans on foreign real estate and where? I get asked this so much. Like that question comes up quite a bit in host camp. Everyone's like, do you want to invest in Mexico or like Spain or Italy? Theoretically, yes, but the logistics of it to me are not something that I really want to deal with, nor is it something that I have the mental capacity or the time to learn and figure out. Theoretically, for me, when I'm buying vacation properties, if I'm just, let's just be honest here. If I'm buying vacation properties, I like to buy things that I can theoretically go and visit with my family. Now, in theory, you would think that I'd want to buy a vacation rental in one of my favorite cities on the planet, like Copenhagen or Amsterdam. But then I kind of break that down a little bit, and I think about the fact that I would have to fly on a plane with my kids for like 10 to 13 hours. Oh man, that is not a vacation. That is just it's like, I know that parents do it all the time, but that to me is like, just flying on a plane with kids for 2 to 3 hours is like crazy. So I don't think I could ever actually go and enjoy like an international Airbnb on vacation. Not like in this phase of life. It's not completely out of the question, and I hear returns can be super amazing in places like Mexico City, Cancun, the Philippines, like so many places around the country. But for now, I'm good. I'm good staying here in the States. Can you tell me about that dope hoodie that you're wearing right now? Yes, I can. Which brings me to today's sponsor, Cuts! So I expressed my genuine love for this brand about a month ago, talking about how I was pleasantly surprised at how amazing all of the threads that they sent me were, and my stance has not changed. All I wear is Cuts. Like this is not a bit. I'm not just saying this because they're the sponsors of today's video, but genuinely, I believe that this is athleisure on a whole nother level. They've got amazing hoodies, joggers, big fan of the joggers, outerwear, and everything in between. And you'll get 15% off when you use the promo code Robuilt. And I'll also be leaving a link for you down in the description below. Okay, on to the next question. They'll never approve this. When you partner with an investor, do you typically offer equity, percentage of cash flow, combo, or both, etc.? At my phase, at this point where I'm at right now, I don't ever put my own money into the deal. My philosophy is I'll be the brains if someone wants to be the bankroll, AKA if they fund it, I'll run it. And so at this point in my journey, whenever I'm talking to investors, it's always a 50-50% equity split. So I get half ownership of that property, they get half ownership of the property. They have to bring all the funds, the financing, the furnishing, the legal, all the costs associated with actually getting the business up and running. After some amount of time, it's always different every single time. We'll quitclaim deed the title of that property into an LLC that we both own, and then we split profits 50-50. On top of that, I charge a 10% management fee, which is a really, really low fee compared to the 15, 20, 25, and 30% standard that's out in the industry right now. And I'm always aiming to get investors a cash-on-cash return, anywhere from 15 to 30%. Right now, with the market the way it is, it's anywhere from 15 to 22% cash-on-cash return. I'm pretty upfront about that. A lot of investors like that because it makes it completely passive for them. So actually, if you're interested in investing with me and you like that criteria, there's a link down in the description below for you. These days, I'm really only working with investors that bring anywhere from $300,000 all the way up to $1 million. Now, with all that said, that's what I do. I would not necessarily approach an investor with these same terms. Tweak them so that they work for you and the investor. Don't try to don't try to copy this because I've got the reputation and the credibility.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Alleged credibility and the channel and the platform to dictate my own terms, but you really are gonna have to work out what's gonna be best for you and this investor as y'all establish your partnership. Ideal Chipotle burrito. Whoo, I could talk about this one for hours. But at the end of the day, what makes me so happy is just a really fat little Chipotle burrito. So perfect combination here is gonna be obviously a tortilla. White rice would be really great. Black beans. Now here's where it gets really interesting on the meat. I love, and I mean I love Chipotle steak. However, it has to be fresh steak that is being cut and then they bring it right out because that steak is typically a little rare. It's medium rare and you can actually see the pink in the beef. Now, if that steak has been sitting sitting there for 10, 15 minutes, it gets all the way cooked through and it becomes rubbery. So in those instances, if I see that the beef is not really an option that I'm gonna go with at my life at that specific point, then I will go with chicken. Ideally double chicken if I'm not feeling particularly cheap or broke that day. Then we're gonna go to lettuce. We're gonna go a half scoop of the medium tomatillo sauce. We're gonna go extra sour cream, light cheese, extra lettuce, wrap, wrap, wrap. Hopefully the tortilla doesn't break, or else I'm gonna be speaking to Carol's manager, and a Mexican Coke or a fountain Coke. If I'm in Texas, then a sweet tea. And that, my friends, is the perfect Chipotle meal. For dynamic pricing, are you using Airbnb's built-in version? Oh, wow. That fake, I'm so lightheaded right now. Give me 1 second. Wow, that's a perfect example of a bit going too far. No, I don't use Airbnb's built-in pricing software. No host that I know really does, and then every host that I know that doesn't know any better. No, don't ever use the Airbnb pricing software. Sorry, Brian Chesky, you did good with the whole platform, but just the actual pricing component, not quite my tempo. I'm more of a third-party app kind of guy. My favorite one for the most part is PriceLabs. It's like 20 bucks a month, whereas other third-party apps might charge you 1% of gross bookings. So this means if you book $10,000 one month, you'll pay $100 in dynamic pricing fees. That's kind of a non-starter for me these days, but if you want to sign up for PriceLabs, I'll leave a link down in the description below, and you'll actually get $10 off of your first bill. Do you think it's a bad idea to have a rental before having a primary residence? No, not at all. Actually, I have a lot of respect for people that are willing to invest first versus buying a personal house. That's a very difficult decision because there's so many ways that one could even answer this question. Because on one hand, I really don't want you to be paying rent. You know, rent is just going into a black box. You'll never see that money again. Whereas if you were to rent and then buy a rental property, if that rental property paid for your rent and also cash flowed, then that's a really, really great thing. But typically, here's what I advise my students. If you're in this bind where you're not sure whether you should buy, rent, like how you should invest, I'm a really big fan of a house hack. A house hack is where you buy a home and you rent out parts of that home, whether it's a room, a bonus space, a body closet, anything like that. You rent that on Airbnb to subsidize your mortgage. And this is kind of the best of both worlds because you get to own a residence, you can rent out space in that unit, someone else pays your mortgage, and now you have no mortgage to pay. And so you can use that money to save up for your next investment. That's my absolute favorite way to break into real estate. The faster you cannot pay a mortgage, the faster you can get to building wealth. Now, if you want to plus this up a little bit, buy a duplex. This to me is like the ultimate house hack because you don't have to share space or kitchens or bathrooms with anybody else. You can have your own personal space, and the other unit you can rent on Airbnb and not just pay for your mortgage, but actually make money. There are so many possibilities. So no, I don't think it's bad to necessarily buy an investment property before a primary residence, but you can have best of both worlds with the house hack. And it allows your down payment to be so much smaller, anywhere from 3.5% to 5%, maybe even 10%, but that's still so much less than putting down 20 or 25% on an investment property. Do you have additional insurance on your Airbnb besides what Airbnb offers? Yes, you definitely don't want to just rely on what Airbnb offers because Airbnb offers, I think, like $1 million through their air cover program. You gotta remember, all insurance companies, it's their job to not pay you. So I would never just rely on that $1 million policy. Specifically because if you just have regular homeowners insurance and you're using your home for things that are not within the guidelines of that insurance, like a homeowner's insurance is really gonna protect you when it's you staying at your house because that's the point of that insurance. However, if you then turn your house into a commercial or a hotel or an Airbnb or whatever type of business, that will then most of the time fall outside of the scope of a typical homeowner's insurance policy. So there are a couple different avenues for this. You can get STR insurance that protects every short-term rental incident that could happen in your house, or you can call your insurance company of the people that are currently servicing your policy and ask them for an addendum or a rider that gives you additional coverage outside of the scope of your homeowner's insurance. This is gonna cost you more money, but this specific route is what I've done for most of my properties because STR specific insurance can get pretty pricey. Do you like cars? Yes, I do. Cars have always been a vice my whole life.
I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
There have been many instances in my life where I owned a car that was too nice for what I could afford at that time, and that was a bad habit and I regret those purchases. And now I finally actually have money to buy cars, like to buy cars that I like. Now I don't own that many cars, I just have my one specific car, but this year I finally had my budget to buy my dream car. It's an Audi e-tron GT. And I wanted to make a whole video about how I bought this car for $123,000, and because of Airbnb deductions and tax write-offs, I was actually only paying $50,000 to $60,000 for this car. but I kind of decided against it because I don't necessarily I don't want to use cars in my marketing. You know, I feel like there are a lot of gurus, and I don't like that term. I don't consider myself a guru, but there are a lot of people in the space that are like, oh, if you make $1 million a month, you can buy this Lamborghini right here. With 20 properties, you can have this Lamborghini, this G-Wagon, this Ferrari. Gosh, it just kind of bothers me because I really don't think that that's the point of starting an Airbnb business. So with that, I don't talk about it a lot on the channel. I might if y'all want to see more around the tax side of writing off cars and all that kind of stuff. But yes, I like cars. I probably could have just said that very quickly. Yes, I like cars. But just so you know, everything that I talk about on the channel, while it's not necessarily scripted, every single thing that I say on this channel, I've probably said 2 to 50 times just to get the wording specifically right. Ask Caleb.
He never knew when to quit. Oh.
Because I really just overly think about the message that I want to put out there for y'all. I really want to come off the right way, and I just want to make sure that my thoughts are always conveyed very genuinely to my audience. And I really scrutinize the words I put out there because I just never really want anything I say to be taken out of context. This got a little bit deeper than if I like cars or not, but there you go. There's your answer. Whoever asked that, yes, I like cars. What big projects do you have for 2022? I've got a lot. I've got a lot of big projects. I'm currently in the midst of permitting a 60-unit glamp site in Arizona. I got my tiny house village that I'm still working on in Tennessee. Permits ever come in for that. Trying to get some stuff permitted in. But my really big project, the thing that I'm really gonna be putting a lot of time and effort into this year, is my 20 house development that I'm doing out in Joshua Tree, California with my really good friend, Tony Robinson. We're gonna be building 10 regular size houses, 5 small homes, and 5 tiny houses that you can invest in. If you wanna be a part of this, if you're an accredited investor, you can invest in our fund that we're calling Investor Collective. Again, it's a 506c fund, so you do have to be an accredited investor, but if you're interested in that, I'm gonna leave a link down in the description below for you, where you can reach out and learn more about what we're planning to do out there. But this will be my best project, my coolest project, my most design forward project that I've ever embarked on. And I'm so excited to take everything in here and just put it out there for the world to see. And that concludes today's AMA. Do you have any questions? You know what? I'll leave this as an open forum to ask literally anything you want about me. All right, get in there, get weird, get personal, get technical. Leave your comments down in the comments down below, which makes sense. In the comments section, leave your comments in the comments section down below, and you know what? I will do them in the follow-up video. Okay, I will take the best questions. So the questions that people like the most in that comment section, I will use those to make my next video. Thanks for joining today's Robviously, where I answer your most intricate questions about Rob. Anyways, I'll catch you on the next episode of Robuilt. I don't know. Do you guys like these? Should I make more of these? Were these entertaining? I hope that you like these because I did. This was a lot of fun. A lot easier than shooting other types of videos where I have to actually plan and outline what I'm gonna say. But when I read your questions, I'm just speaking from the heart. I'm just vamping just like I am right now. I don't have an outline that's dictating when I can end. I can keep going right now if I want to. The thing is, I don't want to. I want to go rest because your boy's tired. Sitting like this for an hour actually hurts my back a lot. All right, I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Robuilt. Bye.